everyone and welcome back. I'm Yaz from Yorkshire Peaches Therapies, and today I'm going to be having a look at my top 10 tips for managing canine joint health. Now, some of these actually have no investment whatsoever. It's just changing the ways that we interact with our dogs and things that we do with our dogs. So I'm going to start kind of in order of priority. So I'm going to start off with one of the most important things that we need to be looking at, and that is, first of all, vet care. Your vet is the only person that can diagnose a condition. They are the only person that can provide pharmaceutical intervention, perform surgery. So making sure that we have a vet on board that's on board with your own ethos of how you look after your dog is so important. I'm obviously a very avid raw feeder, and the vets that I go to are also pro raw. Sometimes people can come up against barriers, especially when accessing veterinary medicine. They feel they can't be open with their vets about the way that they feed their animals. Now, if your vet doesn't align with what you believe, it doesn't make them a bad vet. It just means that they're not the right vet for you. There's so many out there and so many different practices. You know, they have the right to an opinion, as do, you as pet parents. But making sure you have a vet that aligns with you means that should something happen, you have to trust in their knowledge and you have to believe in what they're doing. So making sure you have found that vet before, touch wood, obviously nothing happens, but before something happens is really super important, so you can develop that trusting relationship. Even if your dog doesn't have any, ailments, so ones that, you can see, it's always best to make sure that your dogs do have an annual health check. Now, this normally happens when your dog goes for annual vaccinations. They'll have the vaccinations, a weight check, and they'll, have all of their vitals checked. Now, for some people that isn't the case, and they would prefer to teeter test their dogs. So that's where they take a blood sample and they have a look at the different levels of antibodies in the blood to specific diseases. Now, this is something that I would recommend to be done annually anyway if you're choosing not to vaccinate, but that is another good reason for you to make sure you're going to the vets and getting those annual checks. The earlier that we can find stuff, it means that, the quicker it can be treated and spotted. My second thing is going to be weight management. This one is really commonly overlooked and something that people can take personally. Now, whenever I talk about pain or I talk about weight, it is not it's not a way for me to kind of get at you as a pet parent or anything like that. I just want to make sure that your pet is here for as long as possible, and sometimes that means we have to have difficult conversations. Now, if we're looking at canine joint pain, the thing that's really important with weight management, it's not only the physical extra weight going through potentially a compromised joint that's the issue, it's what's happening on a cellular and chemical level as well. So fat tissue, so that's adipose tissue, releases something called adipokines, and this mimics inflammation. So if you have a dog that already has inflammation in a particular area, say they have elbow dysplasia, they might have some osteoarthritis in that joint as well, we already have inflammation present. We then have the additional weight of a dog, say if they are overweight, going through that joint, so we're putting more mechanical pressure in there, and then on top of that we have the chemical metabolic reactions, which is the adipokines mimicking that inflammation. So it kind of just adds to everything and makes it a whole ball of inflammation that is more difficult to manage. So weight management is going to be one of the biggest ones, but that's something that I'm really super passionate about, and I will kind of come back to that in different episodes. The next thing would be exercise. Exercise for me is one of the fundamentals of making sure that your dog is leading a happy and healthy life. Now, exercise can look different for every household and for every dog, and it's really important that we are tailoring our exercise to the dog that is in front of us. I often say to people, with dogs that may be having an acute flare-up, don't feel like you have to do that 30-minute pavement walk every single day. You're not a bad owner if you give your dog a duvet day, so you give them rest days, which I'll come back to. But with exercise, it's making sure that we are mixing up the terrain. So that means that we are mixing up between concrete walks, so that's pavement walks, and trying to get in some soft walks as well, so that's going across grass, mud, sand. What I would say with sand though, it is actually harder for your dog to move on there. So just be mindful of your arthritic dogs or dogs that do have compromised joints, to make sure that we are not allowing them to basically overdo themselves by over exercising. So making sure that we're not using ball flingers. Again, this is something that I go on a lot about, and I will come to another episode and explain in detail why I don't like them. But basically they are a catalyst for joint degeneration, and there's so many other things that you can do. I do have a video on my YouTube that you can watch, just a really quick overview about ball flingers, but I do need to do an episode about them because they'll take a while. My next thing would be therapies. So therapies, there are so many different types of therapies for your dog. So there's massage therapists like myself, there's chiropractors, physiotherapists, hydrotherapists, Reiki practitioners, osteopaths. There's absolutely loads of us. Now, what I would say is if you are looking to take on some complementary therapies, so this is there to complement the work that your vet has already done. So that means that they have already diagnosed an issue, or they've checked that the lameness that's there isn't being caused by neurological deficits and it's actually a soft tissue injury, just to make sure we're all singing off the same hymn sheet. So with your therapies, I always say there's 3 rules. First one is make sure that your practitioner is qualified. So this isn't a course that they've just picked up online, that their base qualification, if it is hands-on work, they actually have some hands-on assessments with it. With the age of technology, it's just best to double check that where they are getting their information from is a reliable source. Any therapist that I work with, or we're happy to show you our qualifications because we worked really hard for them, so don't be afraid to ask. The next thing would be insurance. Is your practitioner insured? Any practitioner should be insured, whether that's just energy work or you're doing hands-on work. We are required to have insurance. That is for your protection, for as pet parents, and also protection for us as well. And then the final thing is your therapist part of a governing body? We have to remember that the animal industry as a whole is actually heavily underregulated. So if you are spending your hard-earned money with someone, you want to make sure that they are qualified, insured, and also have this governing body. So the governing body is, they're usually voluntary to join. So I myself are part of 2. I am part of IAT, which is the International Association of Animal Therapists, and then the Association of Massage Therapists. So making sure that your practitioner is involved with at least one governing body. There's absolutely loads. There's NARCH for hydrotherapists, there's RAMP for physiotherapists and other musculoskeletal practitioners. It just means that if something doesn't go right, that there's someone there to kind of help navigate a complaint potentially. It just, again, it's another way to provide protection for you. And what the governing bodies do is they make sure that the practitioner who's on their register has the relevant qualification, insurance, but also CPD. So that's your continual professional development. Those are extra courses that have been taken on. Usually there's an hourly requirement per year to make sure that knowledge is up to date and relevant. So the next one on my list of 10 would be fresh food diets. Again, gonna have to do another episode on this one, but fresh food diets for me are super important when we're managing canine joint health. We want to reduce carbohydrate loads. So if we look at what's on the market, we have a lot of dry foods, and those dry foods have a really high carbohydrate load, and high carbohydrates means high sugar, which directly, sugar and inflammation absolutely adore each other. So we don't want to kind of add to that. Also, if the dog doesn't utilize that sugar, it then gets stored as fat tissues. Again, we're going round in this circle, especially if you're trying to deal with weight management. Now, I'm a big advocate for raw feeding, but not even just raw feeding, fresh food. Adding fresh products into the bowl is going to be doing something. So even if it's a case of, raw might not be for you, you might not be in a situation where you can give up that freezer space, or it's just not the one. There's other things that we can be doing. Can we be mixing in some wet food to bring in some moisture? Could we be adding in bone broth? Could we be adding in supplements? Could we be adding in a quarter raw? Could we be adding in fresh leafy greens into that bowl? You know, steamed broccoli, things like that. There's so much that we can do to help reduce that carbohydrate load, but also add additional nutrients into the bowl. So again, that's a super big topic. I will come back to that, but this is kind of like an overview. The next thing would be supplements. I absolutely adore supplements. I get asked a lot, what is the best supplement? And it's a really tricky question to answer. So before I before I tell people what my favorite supplement recommendations are, I want to have a look and see what else is happening in that dog's lifestyle. Have we addressed home style, exercise style, lifestyle? Have we looked at diet? Have we looked at weight management? Have we looked at pharmaceuticals from the vet? Have we looked at herbal medication? There's a lot of other things that we can be doing, other gaps that can be plugged before we reach for supplements. A common misconception is that the more expensive the supplement is, the better it is, and that simply isn't the case. There's a lot of whole foods that I recommend for joint health, such as soaked chia seeds. Soaked chia seeds have a higher omega-3 level than salmon oil, so it's a really lovely way to get those omega fatty acids into the diet to help manage that inflammation response in the body. And how cheap are them? You can pick them up in the supermarket. So supplements, again, really big topic, but make sure you plug in other gaps before you look at supplements, and don't always reach for the ones that are the most expensive. Another thing I see is, this worked really well for my dog, so it'll work well for yours, and that's just not the case, because every dog is an individual. So just be really mindful, especially of supplements that kind of give you big promises. We should be using supplements as part of a multimodal management approach to managing joint pain. So multimodal just means that we're utilising different parts of our team, which kind of covers what I'm discussing today with my top 10 tips. So the next thing would be massage. Obviously, I'm incredibly biased, and I think massage is a wonderful way in which we can help, look after our dog's musculoskeletal system. Massage is a lovely way to provide pain relief, natural pain relief. We're not, I don't have magic hands. I'm simply helping the body heal through its own mechanisms. I'm a facilitator of healing. So learning massage and doing that every day at home, just 5 to 10 minutes every day or every other day, depending on your schedule, is a fantastic way to ease off any soft tissue pain, encourage lymphatic drainage. There's so much that massage can bring to the table. Again, I will come back to this one and do a video on it and a podcast, but just as an overview, massage, 10 out of 10 for me. The next thing, and kind of one of the most underrated things, would be rest days. Rest days are really important. We need to allow the body, especially if we have overexerted ourselves, we need to allow the body time to rest and recover and repair any damage. In order to build muscle, we have to damage, we have to tear muscle to build muscle. So making sure that we are allowing enough time for rest and recuperation is super important. Again, those duvet days in between exercises, making sure that we are spreading out our rest days. We don't want a weekend warrior, so we go absolutely all out over the weekend, and then during the week we're really chill. Try and chop it and change it a little bit. So you want, a good day, rest day, good day, rest day, or medium day, mix it up a little bit. And there's different ways that we can exercise our dogs if they are unable to exercise physically as they once were. And that leads me on to my next thing, which would be canine enrichment. I absolutely adore enrichment. A happy dog will perceive pain differently, and we can take that from human studies. So our emotional state plays a role in the way that we perceive pain. So imagine, for example, you have you've just been told that the dishes need washing, and you're like, oh, I've got this headache and it's absolutely killing me. And you think, oh God, I really can't be bothered. but then imagine you have that headache and someone comes through the door and says, we've just won the lottery. You'd go, what headache? So depending on what's happening around us will impact our emotional state and play a role in how our pain is being perceived, and that is the exact same for our dogs. So with dogs, to provide just simple joys, outlets to express normal behaviours such as chewing and licking. I absolutely love licking mats. I always say to people, imagine it's like your dog doing a jigsaw or a crossword. It's something that's engaging their brain. If we have an engaged brain, it means that any pain that is there, it dampens it down a little bit because your dog is otherwise preoccupied. And then my last tip would be flooring. So again, this is one that gets missed quite a lot. So in modern houses, we have liner, we have wood floor, we have tiled floor. There's loads of different types of flooring. Now, with these kind of shiny flooring, the ones that you can mop, they are like an ice rink for our dogs. So my tips would be, make sure that you're putting rugs down in high traffic areas. So that's things like doorways, at the bottom of stairs as well, to, so if your dog is, going down the stairs and then my dogs take a sharp left to get into the kitchen, I have a rug there to make sure that they have some traction as they go around high traffic areas. Super, super important, especially for dogs with diagnosed joint conditions. However, if you I recommend it for any dog. So even if your dog doesn't have a condition, make sure that you have flooring in high traffic areas. Tractionable, is that a word? Flooring with traction in high traffic areas are just going to help minimize those slips, trips and falls for your dog, keeping those joints safe. So there you go, that is my whistle-stop tour through my top 10 tips for canine joint health. Now, I do have a Facebook group called Hop, Skip and a Jump, so make sure you're in that free Facebook group to keep up to date with the latest podcasts and YouTube videos. Take care for now. Lots of love to you and your dogs.